Hello everyone, my name is Aiman Maulana from Pokde.net, and today I'm going to be taking the Toyota Innova Zenix Hybrid out for a drive. Now, there's a lot that I'd like to share about with regards to this car, but I also can't help but feel like I'll be taking the Corolla Cross Hybrid into the equation as well, because this car actually addresses a lot of complaints that I had with the Corolla Cross Hybrid. But, well, let's not jump right into just yet. So, without further ado, let's go. When you first power on the Toyota Innova Zenix Hybrid, it's a very quiet experience, if I do say so myself, like so. There's one more thing, there's one more little bit of noise. There you go. You're pretty much only gonna get that, and then the sound, the aircon, and that's about it. Now the reason for that is because this is a hybrid car, like I mentioned earlier, so it uses the electric portions of the car to start out first. So as you drive, the car will automatically change between the electric portion and the engine portion, and sometimes a mix of both, depending on what's necessary. It's supposed to be a seamless experience, just like the Corolla Cross Hybrid. So you just drive and don't worry about it. Compared to the Corolla Cross Hybrid, the Innova Zenix Hybrid is a generally bigger car overall. We're talking by width, by length, by height, and even by engine. Because this one has a 2.0 litre engine, unlike the Corolla Cross Hybrid's 1.8. Now to be precise, the hybrid engine that you get here is a permanent magnet synchronous motor with nickel metal hydride battery, along with a 2.0 litre engine that's from the same family as the dynamic force engine. Now, if you're not familiar with the dynamic force engine, if you know about the Toyota Harrier, now that one uses a 2.0 litre dynamic force engine, just for a frame reference. Now this is a pretty big car, if I do say so myself. It's a pretty spacious car, that's for sure. And, well, technically it's a 6-seater car, but the last row of seats, you can accommodate 3 people. There's even a hidden headrest in the luggage area that you can put in, but I personally wouldn't recommend it because it's actually really small. So unless you're just like putting in kids all the way to the back, I'd say it's a decent, comfortable fit for 2 people, 2 adults basically. Now for someone like me who's about 186, 187 cm tall, being in the driver's seat is very comfortable. There's a lot of space for my legs. I can still stretch, no problem. And, well, normally, like for me, and this is something I'm used to, I push my seats all the way to the back, just so I can get a bit more space. Now, in this same seating arrangement, if I were to sit behind me, or someone like me with the same seating configuration, I still get a decent amount of space. It's actually pretty comfortable. Height-wise, I'd say it's about the same, regardless. It's a decent amount of space. You don't have to worry too much about, conking a hip. But the fact that this car does have a sunroof would make it feel a whole lot more spacious than it actually is. Now the last row of seats, if it's someone like me, it's gonna be pretty much impossible to sit comfortably, because as is, I already had a bit of trouble trying to fit in there, and I had to make sure the person on the middle row seats did not have their seats all the way to the back. Otherwise, I just can't fit in there. So again, if you're gonna put anyone in the rearmost seats, they have to be either really small or the kids, basically. Any adults who are over 170, maybe 175 cm tall, you might struggle a bit at the back. On the outside of the car, I'd say I find it looking decently pleasing. You do have a similar style that you'll find from the Corolla Cross Hybrid, especially with its trapezium grills in the front. But you can't help but feel that it's basically just an MPV. Now to be precise, they call it a crossover. They never officially listed it as an MPV or an SUV. But for me, it feels more of an MPV with SUV styling, basically. Especially given how the rear is shaped, because it doesn't have that boxy rear. Like, it's a bit more dynamically designed to fit in more within SUV. But again, it's still ultimately an MPV, a crossover MPV, but MPV nonetheless, especially given the seating arrangement. Now, personally for me, I'm okay with it when I'm inside, because when I'm outside, I keep thinking it feels like what a lot of Malaysians would call as a kereta ustad. It feels like you can't really run away from it, but when you're sitting inside, it really does feel like this is quite the fancy kereta ustad, if I do say so myself. Now, bringing it back to the inside, it's a whole lot better, it's a whole lot cleaner, it's a whole lot more attractive, which is the opposite of the problem that I had with the Corolla Cross Hybrid, because I said the inside of the Corolla Cross Hybrid looks bland, looks boring. You do get a large 10-inch infotainment system. Now this one supports wired Android Auto, wired Apple CarPlay, and wireless Apple CarPlay. To my knowledge, it doesn't support wireless Android Auto, so that's a bit unfortunate, but hey, at least you can still use Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, so which is great. The other point I'd like to add is that unlike the Corolla Cross Hybrid, the speakers in this car are actually a whole lot more enjoyable. Now, I describe the Corolla Cross Hybrid speakers as something more akin to laptop speakers. But in the case of the Innova Zenix Hybrid, there's a whole lot more oomph to it. Now, it's not just a matter of having like better volume, but it's the fact that you can feel bass like in this car. It's not overly powerful bass. It's not like you're going to be in the club kind of bass. But again, you feel bass and the audio feels more whole, more full as a result. Honestly, this car, you don't need to upgrade anything. Like multimedia wise, the infotainment system works great, the speakers sound great, and I did not have any issues with connectivity compared to Corolla Cross Hybrid. I don't have any issues with it being an unstable connection. It works fast, it works fine, I don't have to try multiple times. Just connect it one time and you're good to go. In fact, this is the car that I can say I had zero complaints about using Apple CarPlay in wired as opposed to wireless. I mean, other than the fact that there's a little bit of wire kind of dangling about here and there, but that's just in this specific small area as opposed to having the USB port directly in the head unit itself. And in case you're wondering, calls were great. They had no issues hearing me, I had no issues hearing other people on the other side of the call. I'd say, yeah, overall, you don't have to worry about the infotainment system. It actually works great. As far as storage compartments go, yeah, there's plenty to go about here. You do have like 2 cup holders in the middle here, but usually for me, I just tend to use it to store like other items, like let's say my Touch 'n Go card, or maybe on my phone. And the reason why that's the case is because we do get cup holders on the front here, right in front of the aircon, which will help cool down my drinks better, which makes me want to put my drinks there more, rather than the center here. There's also actually space to put small items here, right by the door, like right below the door handle basically, which is very useful. I think this would make more sense to put in any of your access cards, your payment cards in case you ever need it. When it comes to like rear aircon vents, sure, it's great that the Corolla Cross Hybrid does have them, but in the case of the Innova Zenix Hybrid, it's not mounted in the bottom here, where it might get blocked by the passenger's knees. Instead, you have it over in the top, which can have the aircon blowing directly to the person's face. That, to me, is a whole lot more effective way to implement rear aircon vents. You can cool down the car much better that way, and your passengers will be more comfortable for it. There's no dual zone climate control here, but from my own experience, the car is able to cool down well. It doesn't have the same issue that I had with the Corolla Cross Hybrid, where I feel like there's a whole lot more noise than there is wind. The wind strength here is more than adequate. It's very strong, it's very nice. And even when I'm driving on a sunny day with the sunroof completely open, it still cools down perfectly fine. Like, that's how good the aircon system is in this car. Oh, and now that I brought it up, the sunroof. Oh my god, the sunroof. I absolutely love it. It's one of those luxuries that you can easily live without, but it's definitely something you're gonna miss when you no longer have it anymore. Now, it gives quite a nice view if you ever want to look out and about, not just for you, but for your passengers. Ideally for driver you shouldn't, because you need to concentrate on the road. It brings a whole lot of natural light in the car, and it makes the car feel a whole lot more spacious. Like, it's so good. Now, I know one of the biggest complaints about having a sunroof is that it's too hot, and then there's the possibility of the car having leaks of any kind. Now, I can't really comment on the latter, other than the fact that I haven't had any single leak so far, even when I'm driving through like really bad rain. Because those kind of issues only pop up over the long run. So yeah, that one I'm gonna have to like use this car for like at least a few years to be able to say for sure. But this car has had no issues with keeping the car completely cool, even with this completely open. I can tell you that much. Now, when it comes to driving this car, I actually really love it. I expected it to be a much harder drive given the sheer size of it. Because if you look through the pictures, it doesn't seem all too big. Like, you might think it's just like a size of an Alza, but it is actually bigger. And it doesn't feel that way when you're driving it. In fact, it feels like you're driving a much smaller car in terms of performance, maneuvering. Because the moment you start the car, due to the hybrid nature of this car, you can just go. Like, it feels so zippy, like the torque really kicks in, and it kicks in really well. So it doesn't feel like you're starting out very sluggish. And when you're moving, the car just accelerates smoothly. It feels like a nice, comfortable drive. There's really nothing much else that I could say about how good the car feels when you're driving. But of course, this is under the assumption that you are someone who wants to drive comfortably, especially carrying like, family members or like friends maybe, and not trying to, be the next star in Fast and the Furious. If you're looking for something to drive really fast, obviously this is not the right choice. But then again, if you're actually watching this video, or if you're going to be reading my review of this car, highly likely that's not the kind of car you're looking for anyway, so you'll be fine. I nearly forgot to mention this part on the fun factor of like driving this car, especially compared to the Corolla Cross Hybrid. This car does have a manual shifter. Now, this is in the form of the paddle shifters in the steering wheel, and you do have a manual mode directly on the gear lever itself, which you just change over to the sport mode by moving to the right side, and yeah, you can play with the gears like up and down. This is a small thing that I know a lot of people might not make full use of it, but if you're ever in situations where you ever get bored on the road while driving, and you just want something a little bit more enjoyable, like something like makes you feel like you're playing a video game in a sense. Again, make sure you're driving safely, but if you ever want that kind of joy in driving again, especially when you're in a highway, this is much better, and it's always great to have that option as opposed to not having it at all. Now, you might be thinking, for a car this big, how can I actually say that it feels like you're driving something much smaller basically? Now, the reason for that is a lot to do with the features that this car has. So, obviously you have sensors all over the car, which will help you. But what really makes it that much easier to drive is the 360 camera in this car. Because the moment you start coming close to certain obstacles, or maybe like there's a motorcycle, other cars about to pass by, and when you're parking the car, you get a very nice clear view of your surroundings, so you know exactly how to maneuver through with ease. Now, for those of you who might not be used to it just yet, you might need just a little bit of practice, a little bit of time, but trust me when I say this, once you're used to it, driving this car feels a whole lot less daunting compared to most other big size cars, that's for sure. One of the best things about driving this car is the road visibility you get from the driver's seat. Now, this car is really tall, and with the right adjustments to the seats, you can see a whole lot out there. Like, you can likely see several cars in front of you with ease, and that makes me feel so comfortable, so protected when I drive. I feel like I'm a whole lot more aware of the road, and I feel a lot safer as a result. I could give you some easy figures, but I feel like that shouldn't really give you a clear idea as to how high of a vision I get to see. But to give you some context, if I were to drive behind a Proton X50, I can see the roof of the car from where I'm sitting. And you know the Proton X50 is not a small car. So that says a lot. The one thing I'm a little bit worried right now is that I'm not too sure about the fuel consumption of this car. Because it feels like right now, my fuel consumption is going down quite badly. It's a whole lot worse than the Corolla Cross Hybrid, but I feel like there might be some issue with this car that I'm not too certain of just yet. But I'm gonna try to see if there's anything I can do about it on my end. If not, this might be something I just have to bring up to Toyota, and then maybe one fine day I might just test drive the car again, bring it somewhere far maybe, and then I can calculate fuel consumption from there. But for now, I feel like it'll be a bit unfair for me to comment on the fuel consumption. Now the reason why I say this is because the Corolla Cross Hybrid did so well, especially for a car that had to go through like really bad traffic jam coming from like PJ to KL, with each drive taking about like 90 minutes, close to 2 hours. And this car did not go through any of that, and it had much worse figures than that. Now I get it, it's supposed to be a bigger car and it's a bigger engine, therefore the fuel consumption shouldn't be able to match up. But this is like a very huge difference in figure, and that's what made me worry. Now to be precise, the fuel consumption that I'm getting right here feels like I'm driving a regular petrol car. That's what worries me. Now granted, for a regular petrol car to get these figures, it's pretty okay given the size. But you definitely expect it much better. Because I've seen other people who have reviewed this car saying that they have gotten about 6 liters for 100 kilometers, some of them even 6.5. I'm getting noticeably higher than that. I'm not even going to tell you what it is yet, because I don't want to scare people. But yeah, I'm getting noticeably higher than that. I feel like something might not be quite right. And just in case you're wondering, I do drive in eco when it's in traffic jam, or slight traffic jams, or even within the city. But I only move on to like the normal mode, and it's a little bit of sport mode when I'm in hybrid, which is pretty much the same as I would driven the Corolla Cross Hybrid. So I think that requires a bit more investigation on my end. Now a major point in getting this car over the Corolla Cross Hybrid here is that, sure, this car is a technical 6-seater or 7-seater depending on how you see it, so luggage space is going to be kind of small. But the thing is, I'm pretty sure everyone knows this is not a surprise, you can lower down the seats and the back to make a huge amount of luggage space. Now if you ever need to like buy any large items, this can actually help you save quite a bit of money, because you don't have to worry about paying for a lorry or a van or any kind. Just use this car and you're good to go. Of course, if it is a large heavy item, do get yourself the necessary extra hand to help you out. But yes, if you ever need to carry around, move around any large items, this will be a whole lot easier to do compared to Corolla Cross Hybrid, despite that car also having a huge amount of space inside. Now to conclude, the Toyota Innova Zenix Hybrid is a surprisingly fun car to drive, even more so than the Corolla Cross Hybrid. But it's still designed for those who prefer comfort and relaxation rather than someone who wants to really drive fast. You don't want to stress out, you want to enjoy the drive. Yeah, this is the car for you, especially when you know you have a lot of people that you might want to ferry around every now and then, be it friends or family. Now, as much as I like to say that I have an overall better experience throughout compared to the Corolla Cross Hybrid, I can't exactly say that 100% for sure yet, until I've managed to figure out what is up with the whole fuel consumption issue. But if let's just say you push away the fuel consumption issue, right? To me, this car is in every way better than the Corolla Cross Hybrid, except for how it looks. If you're the kind of person who might be a little bit more picky with how a car would look, you might prefer the Corolla Cross Hybrid, as that looks a lot more, not say just a matter of being modern, but something more hip, something more stylish. Whereas this car on the outside looks a little bit boring, a little bit old, like something old people would drive. That is a problem that I have with it, because it feels quite different from how it looks. And the Corolla Cross Hybrid has the opposite problem. Now, this again is not like a full in-depth review. If anything, just me talking about my driving experience with this car, and I really love this car. But just keep in mind, this car is not cheap by any means, because the Innova Zenix Hybrid is about 200,000 ringgit. But more on that and other details in the full in-depth review, which I'll be writing and publishing on Unported. So stay tuned for that. So in the meantime, I'm just going to be driving around and enjoying the ride while I can before I have to return this to Toyota Malaysia. So without further ado, I'll see you guys again next time then. Bye bye!